Israel has announced today joint strikes with the United States have killed 2 more top Iranian officials. And that is a huge headline. One of them was leading the regime's National Security Council. The other was the leader of a brutal force tasked with slaughtering all those protesters. Retired Navy Vice Admiral and former Deputy CENTCOM Commander Mark Fox is coming up in focus. First, let's go to Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst in Israel. Trey.
Harris, good morning. Significant strikes overnight. The Israelis say they took out Ali Larijani, the de facto leader of Iran, the man who was the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council. And he was even in the streets of Tehran on Friday, directly threatening President Trump and the United States. Today, he is dead, along with another top commander in a separate strike against the besieged forces. This is a wing of Iran's IRGC. And Gholam Reza Soleimani, the man responsible for ordering the crackdown on protesters earlier this year, was also taken out. An Israeli official tells me more than a dozen besieged officials and commanders also killed with him. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking today about the success of these operations.
We are destabilizing this regime in the hope of giving the Iranian people the opportunity to remove it. It won't happen all at once, and it won't happen easily. But if we persist, we will give them the opportunity to take their fate into their own hands.
Earlier today, the Israelis launching a fresh wave of airstrikes against the Iranian regime. You can see in this video released by the IDF on Sunday, these strikes have pummeled Iran for the past almost 2.5 weeks as this operation continues. All of this taking place as the Iranians are responding with ballistic missile fire toward Israel and using their proxies to target U.S. interests in the region. Overnight, an Iran-backed Iraqi Shia militia targeted the U.S. embassy in Baghdad with rockets and drones. You can see on the horizon here in Baghdad that explosion. The proxy Hezbollah in southern Lebanon launching new attacks overnight against northern Israel. This is the community of Nakhariya. And there were a significant amount of rockets fired over the border. 6 people injured there. President Trump over the weekend was asked about the possibility of a deal with the Iranian regime.
Now into the 3rd week of this bombing campaign, what would that deal look like? What are the ask that you're making of the government?
They want to make a deal. They're talking to our people. I don't know if they say that to you. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Don't forget, they are a country that for years, I didn't know this until recently, they're a country based on disinformation. And now they're using disinformation plus AI. And that's a terrible situation. That's a terrible situation.
The Israelis focused on Iran, but also looking at Lebanon, where they launched new strikes against the Dakheh neighborhood of southern Beirut. Some of the aftermath of those strikes you can see here. Israeli ground forces are moving deeper into southern Lebanon to try to reduce this threat from Hezbollah. And Harris, we do have some new information for you here. The Israeli Transportation Authority at this moment is considering closing the airspace over Israel tonight. They've gathered intelligence indicating that Hezbollah is planning another large rocket barrage into this country. Harris?
Trey, thank you very much. In fact, we'll start there with my first guest, Mark Fox, retired Navy Vice Admiral and a former CENTCOM Deputy Commander. Good to have you today, sir. First of all, closing the airspace of Israel because Hezbollah terrorists, the proxy, that terror proxy of Iran, could fire missiles. Your first reaction and thoughts on that?
Well, the Iranians have not changed their stripes, and they're using proxies just like they have in the past. Lebanese Hezbollah being primary one of them, but Hamas, the Houthis. And so that's their playbook, and that's all they know how to do is they're aggressive against their neighbors. They are the author, the reason for all of the malevolent activity that's been going on in that region for 47 years. We don't feel like we've been at war necessarily that whole time, but every single time you hear them say death to America, I think we ought to take that pretty literally and seriously. They've been at war with us for 47 years, and we ought to take it seriously, and we are.
What does it say, though, about the airspace situation in Israel? And I ask that because there have been so many more drones than anybody had anticipated, reportedly. I don't know about the ballistic missile situation and the count of those, but we seem to have decimated them by north of 90%. So if that's the case, why close the Israeli airspace? What is the immediate danger that perhaps we did or didn't see?
Well, there are still an awful lot of missiles in Lebanon. They eliminated you know, 75% of them, but we're talking probably close to 100,000 missiles in Lebanon. So there's still, I think, in the thousands of missiles that they may still have to deal with. They've reduced that threat tremendously, but it's not gone completely.
That's so interesting, because when I was talking about that decimation, that's Iran. But what you're saying is there are still a lot of missiles in Lebanon. House Speaker Mike Johnson just responded to the director of the National Counterterrorism Center's resignation. Here's what he said, quote, "Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation." Johnson's response was this.
We all understood there was clearly an imminent threat, that Iran was very close to the enrichment of nuclear capability, and they were building missiles at a pace that no one in the region could keep up with. They were far outpacing our allies and friends and us in our defense capability, because we had personnel, installations, members of the armed services, and civilians in the region. Iran was building up ballistic missiles at such a rapid pace, and we knew that their plan was to fire them upon Americans.
What's your reaction?
Well, you know, Iran's strategy to close the Strait of Hormuz, to fire missiles at its neighbors, just think about if we had not initiated this campaign and how much worse it would be if they were able to complete their plan to build thousands and thousands of ballistic missiles and drones. So this, as I mentioned before, the Iranians have not changed their stripes. They are the author of everything that's bad in that region, and it's time for them to be that threat to be eliminated from the family of nations.
You know, I want to ask you about the two top leaders. One was reportedly the National Security Council member, and the other was this commander of the Basij elite group inside the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC. How is replacing those people maybe not as worrisome, knowing that you've taken so many out? Because we were seeing a fold in, you know, Ayatollah gone, then his son. Reportedly, we still haven't seen proof of life on his son, but there you go. What's your reaction?
Well, bad things happen to bad people sometimes.
Wow.
I guess that's the only way I could put it.
And should we be concerned about how they might fill the roles of these two men who were pretty critically at the top of what we've been seeing, the killing of thousands upon thousands of protesters just in the weeks before this conflict began?
Well, I think whoever steps up into that will probably meet a similar fate.
I mean, your answers are so concise and they're so direct. I want to know why you think that. Because what we've seen with terrorists before, and this is really a terrorist state, is that there are just waves of them. Is there a difference when you get to a certain level that you say, aha, that's an opening for the United States, for Israel, and our operations to say, we can do what we need to do now? Have we taken enough of the enemy's equipment out? Have we taken enough of the enemy out?
Oh, you know, this campaign, let's put it in context. This is probably the most remarkable air campaign ever waged. Back in Desert Storm, we were how many sorties per target? Back in Iraqi Freedom, we had shifted into precision weapons and how many targets per sortie. They've taken this to an entirely new level now. This is unprecedented. And so in spite of the fact that, Iran is twice the size of Texas, it's a large country, a lot of people, and they've built a lot of very bad things that need to be eliminated. Back to the discussion of the succession of leaders, I think that as long as the Iranian regime, as it is known today, there will always be people. They don't think the same way that you and I think, Harris. This is the regime that sent little boys with plastic keys in the Iran-Iraq War back in the 1980s to clear minefields. That was they sent little boys out to die to clear minefields, and they gave them little keys to the kingdom. That's the kind of people we're dealing with. So we may have to kill a lot of them in this regime to be able to accomplish our objectives, but we must not grow weary of doing what we know is right.
Look, the Strait of Hormuz, last question. Is there a way to tackle that? Our allies are so slow in Europe to get on board with what the president is asking them to do. Your last thoughts on that?
Well, the Strait of Hormuz it's a solvable problem, but it takes time. The geography is set. It is what it is, and we need to have an absolute godlike awareness of what's going into the water. I haven't seen or heard any reports of mines going into the water. And we've also destroyed their small boats and their mine layers. So I think in terms of mines, I think we're probably okay, but the ships that have been damaged have been hit by these drones and by coastal defense cruise missiles, and we still need to continue to eliminate them. But if you look at how many weapons that they're expending as opposed to what they started with, the curve is in the right direction. We are eliminating their ability.
Vice Admiral Fox, thank you so very much for being with me. I can't wait to have another discussion.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.